Oh, okay. Right. Okay. So, hi everyone. Please close your mobile phones or anything. Please listen. Today we'll try to discuss the identity management. So far we have seen the what is blockchain, what are the types of blockchain, what are the one of the application of blockchain is Bitcoin, and we have seen that how the blocks will be created and how they are going to be added to the blockchain. So then what are the different consensus algorithms are used for the distributed network? And so far we have observed all those things. So today we'll try to discuss the another use case or the application type of your blockchain. So that is the identity management. So can you please describe what you mean by the identity management in the for any individual or organization? Identity. Okay. 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 Any other points?
First, I will apologize if I repeat what you said. I couldn't make it up this next week, but to my understanding, identity management is making sure that people are who they say they are, and when new people enter it, that we all know who you are when you enter it, even if you leave and then come back.
Okay. Good point. Any other points? Okay, so today we'll try to discuss this what is an identity. So for any individual users, so this entire concept is based on the individual users, the network. So in every business or and in our social transaction is carried out by people. So generally, people are known by their identities. Hence, the identity drives every business or your social interactions. Like in today's digital age, an individual's identity is not defined by a single attribute such as the name, address, phone number, or any the driving license, social security number, passport. So every user is associated with the multiple attributes, correct? So in that multiple attributes, suppose if you are asked to, go and get the driving license, suppose, okay. So what kind of identity that the driving license agency asks you? Suppose if somebody asks you, go and get your driving license. When you go to the office, what are the basic information that the driving agency, license agency asks?
They put your legal name, they assign you a identification number, they have a picture of you taken at that sign, they have any restrictions on the kinds of vehicles you can, your address, the state of issue, I think that, yeah, there's an audit number. In addition, there are, at least in Utah, there are two different kinds of license cards. There are underage and age. So.
Good. Fingerprints. Okay, good. So you all are international students. When you are going to the airport, suppose, at the immigration center, what information or what identity of yours they will ask you? Passport. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when you go to the library, UTSA library, what information that they will ask you, what identity they will ask you. Right. Okay, so when you are going for the river walk here and going to buy a ticket, what information they'll ask you? Udit, just pay money and get? Okay. If you are allowed to get into the bank, then what information the banker may ask you? If you are a account holder of any bank and you approach the bank to withdraw money or deposit money, what information?
Name.
Mm-hmm.
Also depends on how you're doing the transaction. Like wire transfers require a lot more security than just going in there and saying I'd like to make a withdrawal.
Okay. Suppose you are traveling with the high speed, suppose on the main road. Then you violated the speed limits. If police comes to you, assume that what kind of information that you may expect that the police can ask you to show your identity.
If we're where in the police numbers? Where are we in the like? You can always show driver's license if you have it. If you don't have it, other things like student ID. Still don't have a work ID to points of them saying, well, I live here, I work here. You can call, verify me these ways. Information about your life.
Okay. So from this, from the past few questions, what you got? When you are going to a different agency, so different agencies require different identity of yours. Correct? If you are going to airport, they ask you your passport and your visa. If you are going to bank, they will ask you that give me your bank passbook, your account details. If you are going to suppose some other library, they will ask you your ID card, student ID card or something. So at different places, your identity, asked by the different agencies in different manner, right? So that we call the identity management. So every agency is not asking all your identity at a time. So some subset of identity is asked by them. So how an individual can maintain that is the identity management concept. Okay. So in this identity management, as we said, it is a collection of attributes that including your name, age, address, passport number, driving license number, your student ID number. So different attributes will be there to identify you. So the individuals generally have a little or no control over the information that comprises their identities, because every time managing which identity is required for which agency, which identity is required for which agency. So maintaining by any individual is a difficult task. So there the blockchain concept comes that where your information, your complete information will be in the blockchain, so that you can access that identity whenever and wherever it is needed by any of the agencies. So this identity data is maintaining this identity by any individuals is a challenging task. So identity data is typically decentralized, as we discussed, not centralized. Decentralized means some part for some user, some identity for some use. Some agency. So it is every agency is not required the same kind of data. So it is decentralized. So maintaining that, if I go to library, I need to bring this one, keeping everything in mind. So that is a little bit the harder for any individual users. So the department of your, for example, the motor vehicle issues your driver license, and while your department of your homeland, security issues your passports, bank track, the transactions. So all these, will be maintained in a centralized place so that you can access at any time, anywhere, by which is required by various agencies. So there are two fundamental the principles of your trusted identity management that comes. As we said, the people are known by their identities. So here the thing comes that how this identity will be managed by an individual. So we'll see that in one by one in centralized digital identity. So individuals do not have any control over the information that comprises their identity, because everywhere different identity is required to prove yourself that you are the authenticated one. So if you are the in a traditional way, if all your information maintained at a centralized one, so then all the organizations, they can try to access your information from the centralized one. But what are the difficulties for maintaining this centralized one in a traditional way? What are the challenges to maintain the centralized digital identity? Yeah.
It's a single point of failure where it's the one target to hit for everyone in the network. It also means that uh, one portion of one node of the bank has to have a lot of traffic to keep itself up to date with everything. So you can cause latency and issues with verification because of that.
That's a good point. Yeah. Any other points? One is, as said, the single point failure. Yes? Yeah. If this central point is compromised, suppose, then everybody's information will be available for the attacker, is one. Another one is, how do we trust this centralized one? They may do some malpractice there. They may modify that. And suppose at this centralized point, for any individual user's information which is stored at this centralized point, and that will be accessed by many other agencies, suppose. But here the individual, they don't know which organization accessed the information or identity of this user. The first. Second one is which part of or subset of identity information they used, they accessed from this centralized digital identities unknown to this the end user. So that is another challenging here. So there is a problem of your identity fraud, that the same identity can be maintained by the different users. For example, the users can have the username or password or like email addresses which is similar to the legitimate user, suppose, and they claim that from somewhere your photo identity, they may claim that I am the legitimate user in the Facebook or LinkedIn, claiming that this is Dr. Rajkumar. They may get my photo from somewhere in the website, and they can create an account in the social media that I am Dr. Rajkumar by putting my name, my photo. And after that, it happened during the election process in USA also. The legitimate users' photo identity, they took and created a lot of accounts in the Facebook and tried to activate like a hacktivist by giving the wrong what called the posts in the Facebook and creating the opposition to get points to talk more about that. So that is one, means anyone can do that fraud, that is the identity frauding can happen. So there is no visible over the identity attributes if it is the centralized, the digital identity. So this, why we use this, identity is basically used for your authentication. So when your identity becomes fraud, then the fraud authentication can be done, fraud authorization can be done, and fraud verification can also be done in traditional one. Then how to come out of this scenario. So let us see one more thing, that in this case, to come out of this centralized one, so there are two fundamental principles of your trusted the identity management. One is your self-sovereign identity, another one is your distributed trust model. There are two types. So before going to discuss this, self-sovereign identity and distributed model, you can build a trusted with your blockchain. So the best way to implement the distributed trust model for decentralized identity management is to use the distributed ledger technology, which we have discussed in the blockchain technology, or the blockchain. So in a permissioned blockchain technology, which provides the compatibility that enables a trusted digital identity network to build and operate a shared the appended only ledger with one version of the truth shared across all permissioned networks participants in real system. And then we have seen that at every server, the smart contract should be executed by doing this state machine replication. So this trust between known parties to verify the transactions and the ensure the records are valid. That is what we have discussed in the blockchain. The same concept can be the applied to maintain this digital identity. So that is the user-centric design, which allows the user to control their identity profile and attributes. So this dynamic validation of your identity and transaction data, and the ongoing validation of your information leverages that smart contracts to update the trusted data in the real system. So this trusted digitization, which enables the process to become the fully digital while maintaining a trust in the data items. So there must be some auditable records to provide for this validation, and no hierarchy, unlike the database with the single point of your control. So all participants or all agencies which are associated with any individual can have the same capability of accessing their identity. So this digital identity network built on this blockchain that drive the trust among the business and social enterprises by leveraging the shared ledgers and executing the smart contracts by every agency, like you are driving license agency or homeland agencies or bank agencies or any of the agencies. So then how to manage that. So there is a concept of called digital identity single sign on. So in this digital identity single sign on or single sign on, we say that SSO is a session and user authentication service that permits a user to use one set of your login credentials to access the multiple applications. So can you give the example for that? One session, one login credentials is enough for the accessing multiple applications. Pardon? Yeah. The single user credentials can be used for multiple devices. One more application, I think, suppose if you are allowed to access a Google Drive.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you, pardon? Facebook also. So we have a lot of different applications are there in the Google, right? Gmail, Google Drive, your YouTube, suppose you are having the classroom, you are having some other applications suppose you're having a kind of video recording or audio recording there. So for accessing every application, do you need the different identity or just ask only the username and password of your Gmail? Only one. So that is single identity, that is single sign on is that concept. So the and once you logged in, then you can access multiple applications. So once this authenticated, then the user is granted access to all the applications they have permission to access without needing to re-enter their login credentials. So that is the one. So here single key is used for multiple applications for single session. So in a in a basic web single sign on services as we just checked out, we can access once we get into my UTSA. Suppose by using single ID you can access your canvas, you can access other services like your digital measures, you can access your the ASAP, the single user credentials, right? So what are the benefits of this one means the use of your single sign on that offers the various benefits to both the users and the business. So the benefit for the users that includes their convenience, transparency, and other the help part. So this single identity for various purpose means no need of or maintaining this multiple identity of the document is one. So generally to access some of the services from your USIS immigration service or to access some of the information about your social security number, single identity is enough. So once you get into that portal, then you can access multiple applications of that the SSN portal. So this is widely used. This digital identity of your single sign-on is widely used. This is the conceptualized in the software industry as one password to access multiple services, and it is having the single identity provider IDP that maintains the identity of the user. So in this case, this SSO also aids some business in compliance and for the auditing that so it provides a centralized way to manage access to the applications, so making it easier to audit and they comply with the regulatory requirements. So this SSO provides the cross-platform by using this IDP for the different applications, including your web applications, mobile applications, and your desktop applications. So this can improve the collaboration and the teamwork by providing the easy access to the shared access applications and the data. So this is the advantage of this single sign-on. So one identity is enough for accessing the multiple ones. So this is another example of the case study how this identity will be managed. So another one, if you see, if you combine the previous two cases like single sign-on and your decentralization for any citizen, the identity. So what happens in this case? So in this decentralized one, so for any user, suppose for any user, for first time, the user is asked to provide the user's personal information, the complete information like name, first name, last name, their age, their the complete details about that user. So that will be collected by a record keeping agency, we call. So this record keeping agency maintained the information of or identity of this user as a centralized one. So that is your identity database will be there. So this identity database security responsibility will be taken by this record keeping agencies, all the security aspects, because that data should not be misused by any of the agencies. So then if there are multiple agencies are there, suppose, That means if this user is trying to go to, suppose, the bank or post office service, then they'll try to ask the bank details, as we said. So that bank details, whatever the details provided by this user, that must be validated. For validation purpose, the bank is trying to contact this or bank or any public sector server or any mobile company services. They'll try to access this identity database which is keeping the record by the agency. So upon getting that data from that identity database and whatever the database provided by this user, they will be compared. If matching, then the data is valid. If not matching, then the user is providing the wrong identity or fraud identity. So, for example, if you go and purchase any new SIM, suppose, then they will ask us the address proof and any that is the first one, connection, and they will ask our driving license, not other information, identity information like passport or your SSN number or any other thing. So they may ask very limited information or limited identity. So that will be accessed from this database and compared to validate that data whether this user is a valid user or showing that any fraud identity. So in this case, by following this decentralized digital identity is again a challenging task. So in decentralized identifier or digital identity, there is no centralized trust identity which is powered by or registered by the digital representation of your physical identity. So it has two challenges actually. One is the issuer ID verification. Another one is the identity holder. Identity holder. So the issuer authority, the driving issuer, any of the identity issuer government is given some identity to the user. Then suppose if user is going for any other organizations, then that organization requires these two steps. Who issued that identity for this user? And for that, the verification will be required. So in this, the decentralized digital identity. So how to maintain them? Then we have just said that, the fundamental principle of your digital identity management is, as we are saying that it maintains the self-severage identity is one. So in this self-severage identity, what happens here? The self-severage, the sovereign identity principle that empowers the individual to take full ownership and control of the identity information. So that is, custodian can provide and verify identity attribute, but an individual's actual the existence does not depend on the details. So individuals can control how these attributes define them in the context of a business or social information or social interaction. So initially, it may not be plausible to put the entire burden of identity management on individual users, but we must start with systems built on the user permission data model, in which the consensus and some consent is the essential in this case. And the second one, as we are saying, that there is a the distributed mechanism is also required. So in this self-severage, what it is, the privacy control. So individuals should have the full control or the ownership of their own identity or identity information. So here the individuals can control the uses of their the own identity means. But it is as maintaining this identity for a different agencies, it is very difficult for any individuals to maintain this identity as a decentralized one. So in that case, one of the application that comes that decentralized the identity. For that, it must be distributed trust model, so that the since identity is decentralized by the default, so it's critical to establish trust among the users, because some users having the driving license information, some users may have the passport information, some users may have the telephone information, some users may have the address proof for social security. So it is completely decentralized one. So identity, it's critical to establish the trust among these users, so that they can interact to each other to get the information. So the identity providers and relaying parties is a critical task to establish this trust among the users. So this way, all parties can use a agreed upon set of identity attributes to authenticate, verify, and authorize any individuals. So that is possible by using the application of your the blockchain. So there is one system which is called as your digital, decentralized identities, or DID we say. So this decentralized identifiers are the new type of your identifiers that enable the verifiable decentralized digital identity. So a DID refers to any subject, that may be a person or organization or thing, or the data model or abstract entity, etc. So as determined by the control of your DID, in contrast to your the typical federal identifier, these DIDs have been designed so that they may be decoupled from centralized registers or registries, and identify providers and the certification authorities. So, especially while other parties might be used to help enable the discovery of information related to a DID, the decentralized ID, the design enable the control of your DID to prove the control over it without requiring permission from any other party. So these DIDs are the URIs, we say, the unified the resource identifier, which is that is associated to this DID subject. Subject means any person or any organization. So with the DID document, that allowing the trustable interaction associated with the subject. So in this DID, it is designed to be a decouple for your centralized registries and identity providers and certificate authority for authentication and authorization and your validation purpose. So this DID is actually proposed by your W3C, that is proposed the recommendations that World Wide Web the consortium. So the concept of this is the DID architecture. This DID architecture model, which is having some sort of the experiments, the goal is to achieve the decentralization, control, then privacy maintaining, then security issues control, that is based on your proof of or proof based one, which we have seen in the blockchain, proof of work or proof of stake, and then the discoverability and interoperability, portability. So by maintaining this architecture is defined as the DID that maintains the subject. So subject is sometimes also called as your the DID controller, who have subject means any person or any organization. They have all the control over their document. So to modify or to update or anything. So in DID, the syntax will be given that in DID and your DID URI, the decentralized one, this DID or your DID URL. So this is a decentralized identifier, and these are composed of three parts. One is you are having DID, the first part, second part, and the third part. So which gives that the first part, this DID, is one part. Another part is your a method identifier. In this case, the method identifier is your example, and the third one is it is the method specific identifier. So this DID consists of these three parts. First one is it's the scheme, and second one is the method identifier, third one is the method specification in this DID. Right? So where you are having this DID subject, as we said, this DID subject of your identifier. So the entity identified by the DID. So the DID subject might also be this DID controller. So anything can be the subject of your DID. That is your decentralized identity, and this DID controller that control these DID entity that controls that entire document of any subject or the identity. So what I know how they are going to control it. So this controller of your DID or DID controller is the entity of your person or organization or any autonomous that has the capability as identified by a DID method. That is the second part, the DID method part. First one is your DID scheme. So they identify this method to make changes to your DID document, and means any updates are there that will be updated. So this capability is typically asserted by the control of your set of cryptographic keys used by your software acting on behalf of the controller. So though it might be as asserted via other mechanisms, but this DID might have more than one controller, because this document may be controlled by many other objects, many other people or your subjects. And then we are having this DID URL. This DID URL gives the very specific or the external things. So in that it is saying that the scheme is DID. We'll discuss what is individual schemes are there. In that the method is example, and specifically in that example going for another identity is your 1, 2, 3. And for that, where the resource is there, the path will be given from where that information can be gained by this DID users. So these are some of the information of this DID architecture. So in this, it is very important for the first part that the unique URI, that identifier, is subject. This subject may be any person or any the organization. So in that subject, it is having three parts. As we said, the first part is your scheme. So the subject may be any entity or organization, as said, and the information related to that subject is completely controlled by that user only in the network. So the entity with the permission who can change or do any modification. So permission means it includes your cryptography. It includes your cryptography means it requires some username and password, means it requires some secret keys. So secret keys means if it is a digital signature, in that case it uses the private key and the public key. So this subject or your controller sometimes interchangeable. So they have the complete control to change or modify their document. So that once the documents are identified, the modified or updated, so that record will be updated in the the record keeping agencies, where the valid verified data registry will be maintained, and from there every agency they can get the information, because nowadays every individual requires the global identity. So that global identity will be maintained here. So this in the fourth step, this record or verified the data registry that contains the information of any subject whose what is the private key of that, public key of that, so that entire data will be maintained to access their identity by any of the third parties. So this is the basic architecture of your DID. So we'll see what is the DID UIA. So this the controller controls the entire document, the DID document. So this DID document is a unique address identifier to the location of your document. And once it is accessed, how it is going to be identified means having three parts. First part is your scheme. Second one is DID method as said, and third one is the method specific identifier. So in this scheme, the document is given that in DID document scheme, the specification is given that the system which supports the DID scheme, example DID resolution. So here I may give that the DID of Raj, the individual, in that it is giving the phone number, suppose Raj phone number, and in that then whatever phone number is there, that will be maintained. Okay, so there is a uniquely identified DID document with the DID method. So another one is your DID document, which we are saying. So in this DID document, you're going to have the what you call the information which is related to any of the individuals there. So what kind of information that it will have there in that document part? So all the information which is related to any individuals, correct? Their name or their phone number, their address, their age, their passport number, their the license number and everything. So this the entries in this document, if you see, one is your DID specification registration, that is your core properties. So in the core properties, you are having the ID, also known as the the controller authentication and verification methods. For that, it requires the keys. So those will be maintained, and the property extensions, suppose, and unregistered property extensions, your core representation specific entries like at context or something. So that document information will be maintained, that this is a set of your data describing this a particular subject or particular person, that including the some mechanisms such as your cryptographic public keys also. And another unit which we have seen in the document, it consists of three parts. First is the identity part, that is the DID for a particular subject, and then the authentication, that is the verification method by specifying how this DID subject can be authenticated by using digital signatures and those things. So here it uses for authentication purpose, use the method called the public key verification method. So that is by following this public key encryption or decryption process, means your digital signature one. And another one is service, which service it is using, whether they are going to use kind of LinkedIn domain, or they are going to use any other domain like Facebook domains and so on. So this kind of information will be there in the JSON documentation for the verification. So what is the relationship between this DID, decentralized ID, and decentralized the document and controller? Because as we said, sometimes subject and controller are the interchangeable, but how they are related to each other, that means your subject or the controller can control this document. So how they are going to control these documents? Suppose first time, if this document is having only the details, the primary details of your first name, your last name, or some age, or only after a period of time, suppose your phone number is also updated, then that will be modified by this controller or the same subject only, not by any others. So as we saw in the blockchain, that only the authorized miner can change the or update the information. They can update means they can append the information, but already existing data cannot be modified or malpractice. So this DID is an the identifier which is assigned to a DID controller to refer to your DID subject and resolve the DID documents that describes the DID any individuals. Another one is this document is artifact of this DID resolution and not the separate resource or distinct from your subject. Only the user who is authorized to whom it is belonging, only they can access for doing any modifications. This so this DID document that is you are inside the variable the registry as we said kept at the the intermediary the record keeping agencies, right? So this the often this DID subject and the DID controller are the same as we said. So in this DID flow, how it happens, we'll see. Suppose there is a user, so they must register first with the agency. So in that agency, suppose alias is there, alias is going to create the DID document first. So alias is the subject here, DID subject. Okay. So alias is providing, first generates the keys first for securing that document. So Alice is going to have the one is private key and the public key, or we call the public key and private key or secret key. Then using this key, Alice can create a document to do the registration. In that document, it will have the ID first, the DID ID, decentralized ID. So that decentralized ID is having the DID registry 1 with name or subject Alice. Okay. So then it is for authentication purpose. This document authentication purpose, Alice is using its private key, the public key for encryption purpose. And further, this document will be controlled by Alice itself. So the controller or the DID registry of Alice, who is belongs to the same person. So then in the second step, it is going for the registration process. So to register this DID with the third party agency who can take burden of maintaining the identity for the decentralized authorizations. So this document is undergoes through the signed process, signature process. So that is the registered DID, whatever the DID document is there, that DID document is signed by this Alice by using the private key. So why this signature is used here? As we know that from the plain text, it goes through the hash function of your plain text. It generates the digest. Now that digest is encrypted. This digest by the private key of your or secret key of your user. So then that becomes your digital signature. That digital signature is concatenated with your plain text. So that is the document in this case here. So that will be going for the authentication purpose at the next level, that registry. So in the DID method, the second step, first it is created the scheme. Second, it goes for DID method implementation. In the method implementation, first it goes through the authentication or authentication process. So in this authentication process, what it did, it is authenticated DID that controls here is based on the signature. That means what? How it is going to be authenticated? Now this is going to the database of the third party. So at the third party side, what they will do, they'll separate this plain text from your digital signature. And this plain text undergoes the same procedure again. Goes through and receiver side. Goes through the apply the same hash function by taking this plain text as an input, like your SHA256 suppose. Then that will generate one digest, and that digest is compared with this digital signature digest. If it is matching, that means there is a integrity. Only authorized user is sending that, because so in that is sharing with this public key. So once that is authenticated, then that data will be updated in DIT document. So in that DIT document, once it is updated, then the new registry will be there in the inter record keeping agency. And upon, if any third party agency, suppose, like the Bob want to authenticate the subject of your Alice, whether this Alice is a authorized one, or Alice is providing the what you call the correct identity or a fraud identity. To check that one, this Bob is going to fetch that document from this registry and try to authenticate whether this Alice is the authorized, providing the authorized identity or not. So this is the step of your DID registration for maintaining this the decentralized digital identity in the blockchain system. So we'll discuss how it is going to be applied in the blockchain system in the next class. I would like to stop this session here. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.